Hello. Yes, we welcome you to our session. We have two different sessions here. Felix and I something about the harvest admin ad, and then Minus tells us about his experiences
doing the first upgrade after going live.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you for your interest in harvest admin ad. Felix and I are from Germany. We are working, as most of you know, for the GBV head office called VZG. Yes, yes, and VZG is a public service provider for yes, libraries. We are hosting the library systems and so on. And for understanding what the Harvester admin app is good for us, you should know a little bit about our cataloging practices and our metadata practices. So we have a slide for this. Yes, we are about 500 libraries are cataloging together in one big cataloging database. It's called K10 Plus. It's an OCLC database, and it contains about 80 million title records and 15 million authority records, and yes, 230 million holdings are connected to the titles. Of course, you have links between the titles, and we call between titles and authority records. And our librarians have, in most cases, just have to add holdings and items, because the title records are already there. About 80%. We have shared cataloging. And as already said, we are cataloging in a CDS. We are cataloging outside of FOLIO with a proprietary format, not Mark 21. This one here? Yeah. Okay.
With the arrows.
Yes, I did. Okay, this one. Okay. Data management takes place in different systems in our world. The authoritative system is the CDS, as already said. And we also use the CDS for interlibrary loan and as metadata source for discovery systems. For circulation and for circulation and acquisition, we need the BIP data and the holdings data in FOLIO, and so not all our data is needed in FOLIO. We transfer selected data with holdings and items and without authorities. Just to know this. And the transition from of the data from CBS to FOLIO. How can I change this? Speak louder or?
Just ignore it.
Okay.
The microphone is behind the.
Yes. Thank you. To transfer the data from CBS to FOLIO, one-time initial load takes place for the batch process, batch process, and then we have real-time updates for all live operations. And we need the data for all new titles. We need the data in real time and immediately. Okay. Yes, here you see the trip of the data from our CBS system to inventory storage. And there are different components, and one of it is the mods and UI harvest admin module, which we are talking about today. And yes, this module has also an UI, it's UI harvester admin. Mod harvester admin is an Okati service that can be put in front of the index data harvester. That's the one that transforms Pika XML to folio JSON. And mod harvester admin is like a wrapper around this index data system to give us a folio look and feel, and it provides us with logs and errors about the transmission. If there are any errors when transferring the data, it is told us by the harvester admin app and an interface Felix will show later on. Yes, the harvester admin app is developed by Index Data. Mike is here, one of the UI, or the UI specialist for it. Yes, it's developed by Index Data on behalf of ESG, of us. The initial goal was the storage of logs of job runs and phase records directly in the folio database, and including access to this data for system librarians in a folio UI. Yes, and now it also provides access to the configuration of the process. Felix will show it. If user has, of course, appropriate permissions. Not everybody shall see these configurations, but the system librarians who are allowed to see them. The harvester admin app is not yet part of Folio Complete, but it can be simply installed via Docker container. So I think now it's time for Felix to have a look at the app.
Yeah, hello everyone. So instead of going through the slides, I thought it would be better to have a live demo because you then get a sense and a feeling how the app behaves. But of course, I have my backup slides. So if everything, if the system should be offline, we can switch back to the slides. So now I have to get the controls out of the way. All right, so before we get into the actual app, it's best to start at the settings area, because before we can process any data, we have to set up certain things. And first are, of course, transformation steps. So that is basically a set of XSLT style sheets that the data is run through in order to be processed so that we end up with our folio inventory records. But we are coming from another record format called Pika, as Antje already mentioned. And what you can see here is that we have multiple steps, and you can see the transformation route. It is either XML to XML, or at the end it's XML to JSON. And looking at one of the steps, you can see here that, we have to specify the input and output format. And then everyone who's working with XML or XSLT should recognize this structure. And we could look at a really basic mapping. So just to look at our HRID for the instance record, you can see here that we access a Pika field. So that is the structure of a field, and a Pika subfield. So that is the same as with Mark. You have fields and subfields. We select a value and write it to a variable, and then we can access this variable when we populate our HRID field for the instance. So that is just really, really basic mapping. There are a lot more advanced mappings, so you can concatenate values, you can trim stuff, you can filter for stuff. So that is all possible. But I would say we leave it with that. And continuing, we have to define a transformation pipeline. And the transformation pipeline is basically all the steps that we have defined, or just some of the steps, and we put it in a given sequence so that the data is coming in and it will go through all the steps one by one, and in the end it will be transferred, in our case, to this JSON data structure. And what you can see here is that in our case we have one pipeline, and we have all the steps. So this picker to instance, defining relationships, creating holdings and items, converting all the locations to a UUID, and having then create all these reference data UUIDs as a final step converted to JSON. And the third configuration option is the storage engines. And what you can do here is basically define the FOLIO system that you want to connect. So you have to specify the Okapi URL, and in this JSON configuration object here, we have some properties that are then interpreted by the actual harvester app that is living outside of FOLIO right now. But we are working on it to be part of this harvester admin app. You can see here, of course, we have to authenticate in order to write into FOLIO. We have to specify the tenant, username, password. And we then have two different upsert methods. We are using the HRID path. So what that means is the job is looking at the HRID of an incoming record and matches it with an HRID of an existing record in FOLIO. And if there isn't a match, it will just create a new record. But if there is already a record, it will be updated. But there's also another method that will use a match key, and this match key is being calculated from certain properties in the instance record. So, for instance, title, pseudo classification, author, and some other fields. And the last interesting configuration option here is the log history storage path. So that is the path where our logs of previous job runs are being stored. And with previous job runs, we can continue to our actual app. So it is Harvester Admin. And the app consists of 3 different tabs or components. So we have harvestables, we have jobs, and we have failed records. And we should start with the harvestables. In our case, we will always have just one harvestable in day-to-day operations. The exception is the initial load, because then we have multiple harvestables running in parallel. And the harvestable is the place where the transformation pipeline and the storage comes together, and even more properties are being defined. We could look at the harvestable and the information. So, for instance, we have a job class. In this case, it is XML bulk. That's the only one we are using, but there are more job classes that one could use, for instance, for harvesting OAI PMH server or other things. And we have a lot of metadata, but not all is relevant to us. So you can see the last harvest. So that is the date where the harvestable was last run. Interesting for libraries using this in a CBS context is especially the use by field, because that is the library number, or ILN, so internal library number from this library. So 21 here is State and University Library of Bremen in Germany. And then we did a trick and reused both fields, so used by and service provider, and service provider contains the IP address and the port of the connected CBS system. And the OUF, that is like a proprietary software from OCLC that fetches all the changes from CBS, will then communicate with the Harvester app and start the job if the ILN in used by and the service provider here matches the settings in the OUF. But OUF is outside of FOLIO, so we just can leave it out for now. There's also the option to schedule the harvest job. So, for instance, if you want to run this harvestable every night or once an hour, that would be possible, but we don't use it because the harvestable is triggered from an external system. Also, a relevant parameter here is the storage batch limit, because we are using batch APIs, so we don't send record by record. To improve performance, we are using batch. And yeah, the number here correlates to the amount of instances, holdings, and items you want to have inside of such a batch. We have a concept of an inventory record set that is an instance record containing an array of holdings, containing an array of items. So we just send everything at once. The last thing I will show you here, pretty much the last, is that you can specify a log level. So if you have a really verbose log, or it should be less verbose, you can specify it here. Yeah, that has an effect on the amount of things being logged to the system. And lastly, of course, we have to specify a URL where our files that should be processed are living. And in this case, yeah, it's just a directory here under this URL where our Pika XML files are living. So continuing to jobs, you will see a pretty long list. So 40K jobs have been run since, I don't know, you could look it up, because every time the harvestable is being started and then has ended running, it will create a job here. So that is a job. A job is one run per harvestable. And we can see some metadata about this job. Of course, we can see when it was started, when it has finished, and we can see how many records, meaning those inventory record sets, have been processed. And you can see here that we have a lot of jobs being run, and they are running constantly. So today, last one was, oh no, we have to calculate time difference. I think it's 2 hours. Yeah, so we now have 74 past the hour. Last one was run just before this presentation started. And we can look at the details. So we have a summary of records being processed, then being loaded, maybe all our deletions, and failed records, so something went wrong. And we also have a plain text log with all the information if you want to dig really deep into what happened here. For instance, we have the name of the XML file that has been processed. So that was this one. So we could look up all the records that have been processed during this job run. And last but not least, because we have that many jobs, it is hard for us to determine any failed records. So we have an aggregated view of all failed records, and it is, the filter is preset to the day before today to see just the most recent failed records. But we can, of course, change the filter, for instance, to August 1st. And there should, 4 failed records. You can see the record number, so that is the HRID. So we can find the instance record, we can see the instance title, and most importantly, we can see the error. So why did the error occur in the first place? And in this case, on all those 4 cases, it was because of optimistic locking. So we've tried an update with an out-of-date version of the record. And if we now extend the selection, let's say to June 1st, we'll see some more errors and causes for this. And in this case, the effective location ID, so the UUID for the location, wasn't present in the system. So we even have to create a location with this UUID, or we would have to change our mapping so that this location UUID is no longer being used because it doesn't exist in FOLIO. There's also the option to export this log. I've done it yesterday in order to speed it up here. So it's, as we are used to in FOLIO, it's a CSV file. And when we are looking at it in an editor, First thing we want to do is remove one column because I want to have like a concise view. So here's the original record in Pika format. I will delete this column just to give you a glimpse of what you can do here. So imagine someone wants to process all those errors in order to correct them. They don't have to go into FOLIO or don't have to go through this multi-column list in FOLIO. They can just export it, use the record number that here is the UUID of the record, look it up, change it, and we have some more metadata here. For instance, we also have information. Oops, it's going so fast. We have some information about the a policy for overwriting item status or retaining it. And of course, we have the error message. It's the last column. So one could even filter for the error message or make it unique so that you find all the records that have an issue with a certain location, for instance. Okay, with that, we can continue to our last slides, and I will hand it over again to Antje.
Just, I would like to add that we are live with transformation and the app since January this year. Felix showed you with our test system, and we also are live in Bremen, and there aren't many error messages. There are not many failed records. Most records that are failed, most message that appear is that the barcode is cataloged twice in the central system. And then, of course, inventory storage says, okay, this barcode is already here. This is good, but the system then says that there is a problem. And yes, and we 1 year ago, we hoped that there are some deletions in our union catalog that should not be performed in FOLIO. For example, if there are items that are checked out, we don't want FOLIO to, yes, do this deletion then, and so we have skipped deletions. We have some events where we told FOLIO, if this happens, please do not delete the item or the title in FOLIO. And but of course, we want to know which items or titles are skipped from deletion. And our hope was that we can display this also in the failed record tab Felix just showed you. But this is not possible because the failed records are filled by inventory storage, and inventory storage does not know about it. And so we it was we got a workaround. And this is the statistical code on instance holdings and items level. The process now sets a certain statistical code to tell the librarian in inventory if there is instance or holdings or items that should be deleted or is deleted in CBS, but is protected from deletion in FOLIO. And then the librarian can look it up. There's a statistical code here as an example for delete protection because there is still a purchase order line linked to the instance. And then the librarian can look these titles up and can transfer the POLT to the right title, and then the title here in FOLIO can be deleted. And I can show you the 4 different delete protection events we figured out. Acquisition is what I just talked about. And then if the holdings record or the item record is cataloged in FOLIO, then no CBS action shall delete these records. And of course, a circulation event, if the item is still connected to a patron, for example, if it is checked out, then no CBS event shall delete these items. This is all documented in the GitHub repository, and we also have an example here. Can you look it up? That's it from our side. Ah, no, there's another slide. Land development. Yes, of course, as Felix showed, we have many logs, even in our test system. And we want an automated deletion of these logs, and we want to configure it that each library can say, okay, delete these logs after 30 days or what. We have some minor enhancements in the UI. And of course, we want to document everything better. And the biggest thing is this here, refactor the legacy backend index data harvester as native folio. Felix already mentioned it. So we want to replace this component by a mod or UI harvester admin component, so that we have most of it in the real folio world. So this is really all last slide. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Question. If not, it's good, then we can, minus can go on.
Is there any date for replacing the legacy harvester with a totally folio app?
But we hope that we can do it in 2025.
2025.
We haven't really finished the requirements yet.
Okay, but it's not that far anymore.
But we started and we together with our sysops and index data, we think it's a good idea to refactor it.
So Modern Harvester Admin is a folio app, and obviously when we saw the user interface there, it was talking to Modern Harvester Admin. But in its current implementation, it works by basically proxying messages through to the legacy harvester. That's what we want to do. So the equivalent functionality will happen right there in the new Modern Harvester Admin.
Will it be part of the release, or is it?
Do you mean the flower releases?
Yes.
I believe it's not included in the
No.
flower releases.
No.
There's no reason it shouldn't be. It's just a tedious bureaucratic process to get things in there, and that's like the heart of template.
Okay.
But we should do it in the long run. shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have to look at all those things that are in the air with the application formalization thing. So I don't know if we will have those monolithic releases in the next years, but yeah, we should try to get it in fully complete.
But don't forget, you can run folio modules that are not in the flower release.
How fast do the records get updated if you're changing the CVS?
Real time.
Real time. So
Yes.
immediately.
Yes. Indeed.
I'm sorry if maybe you said this, but where do you configure the protection events? Is that in the app as well, in the Harvester admin app? The deletion protection?
The deletion, where it is configured.
Yeah.
It is in a way configured in mod inventory update by index data. There are these 4 events are defined, and then you can choose by yourself in the XSMLT files in instance, what's the name? Instance to Pika to instance XML processing element. There we have an example in GitHub. And it is really well documented by Nils Eric in the README file of mod inventory update.
That module is the best README of anything in folio.
Yeah.
Yes, I was surprised. The only part that's of the whole module of mod inventory update that's documented. The
Right.
rest is undocumented. So surprising is only this part is documented.
Right.
If you look at the README of the whole module. So it's surprising what's immediately there, what I was looking for. But
Right.
could be more in total.
Thanks, minus it's your time.
Yeah, we should wrap it up and switch on. You need to stop sharing.
Okay, sorry. I need to. I need my glasses. I cannot see anything. You're welcome. I can go. Take this with me, think so. My big face on the stage, I don't like it.
Oh. My name is Magnus Torneby, but I'm called Minus. So I like that they have put my name on my tag, both my names. I'm from the University of Linköping in Sweden. We are not very big university. We have 4 campuses, most of them centered here, but we have one in Stockholm region 2. We started our journey into FOLIO in 2019 with the library starting changing their old system. In 2020, they had talks because of the rules in Sweden. We need to separate who has loaned each book that's sensitive data. And they talked about splitting out the user database, so we had that locally and fully ran in the cloud. But that failed, so we decided to run our own instance instead. And the first instance we gave to the library, I'm working in the IT department, so we set up the system for the library, was a honeysuckle, and then we automated the installation the next year and went live a little bit more than a year ago. And I'm going to talk about the travel from the Nolano release to Orchid mostly, and I hope we can release Poppy somewhere around Christmas this year. We have a large number of clusters. We have usually one production cluster of FOLIO running at a time. We have 3 or 4 test clusters running. Some of them are the same status as the production cluster. Some are for future releases of FOLIO or for older releases. And then we have a number of lab clusters for our internal development. We talk to different clusters via, for example, the edge. We have a stable EP number on that machine, so other services can connect to us and get routed to the right machine. We have a discovery system. I don't remember what it's called, but then we have our, is it EDS? Okay, not my side of things. Then we have an application we have developed ourselves for handling the loan part after discovery. And each of these clusters looks like this. We have a large FOLIO node with around 100 gigabytes of memory, and that runs all the FOLIO modules. They are connected to 2 database nodes. And then we have a few edge nodes. The one named edge is for communication outside of the university mostly. And then we have our checkouts and sorters that also have their own machines. And to handle all these machines, we use Forma, where we create the VMs and give them the right role. And then we have written Puppet manifests to do the reinstallation on the machines. One of the first things we found out is that mod inventory storage count. So when you do the subject series migration, we get different count every time we run. I reran the migration on a migrated test server just last week, and it swings by 100,000 items. So that made us very insecure and moved the live date 3 months into the future. It would be very nice if the process count would be stable, and if we could have a count of how many items were migrated, because that count is missing. And that should be 0 the next time I run it, hopefully. We accidentally sent out a lot of emails about overdue books because a test server was loaded with an older database dump. And to mitigate that, we have started changing the database to destroy the email, all email addresses, except one. We do it in a reversible way, so we can go backwards if we need to. We change the mod emails server configuration, so we point on a non-existing server. We get a lot of error messages, but we can handle that. And we have added firewall rules, so we can't contact the main server at all from inside the cluster. During our testing of Nolana, we found out that our sorters was not able to do everything they should. So we bought time from Index Data to help us extend the system. And Alex there helped us with integrating those changes into H2C. So we are still running on the development version in production, and it has worked flawlessly. And I hope we can, with Poppy, go up to a normal released version. But I'm not sure. We have had some more changes we found.
There are some more corrections in Presnelia.
Yeah.
Yes, the Presnelia is really good. The next version is always the best.
Yeah. We changed all our passwords, or at least those we have found yet. It's very hard to find all the modules that needs a password change. We have to going through all the modules and find the first list that you use environment variables, quite easy. But when you start going into the internal passwords where you need to call APIs, it gets hairier. And one of the last things I found was there's a hidden password in SAML, mod login SAML, which you can't change except by reading the source code and hack the database. And in the future, we might start changing all the usernames also, just for security reasons.
I think there was a security issue, I think, relating to Nolana because of 2 passwords. So this might have changed in later version.
Yeah, it's a bit better.
Or something like that.
But I don't think there's a collection page of all modules that needs password change.
Exactly. But the hardwired passwords, they are
mostly gone.
They are gone, yes.
No, they are not gone, they're mostly gone.
Okay. Okay.
The same with the AWS S3 stuff. We are keeping a local storage cluster with Ceph to keep all the data private. And it's hard to find all the modules that uses that too. And there are 2 different sets of environment variables you need to set, depending on which module. And you have some modules that fall back to a mean IO if it fails with the AVS configuration. And some modules might lose functionality if you are missing the AVS stuff. And it might do it silently. So it would be good if the logging was a bit better for AVS and minor IO stuff. And reference data. When should you use load reference data? Set to true. We have found that some modules want it every time, some sometimes, and some only once. And it's not very good the documentation in this area either. Mod search reindexing, which happens at least as we run it once when we start the system, since we have not looked deeply into optimize our indexing. We don't see any progress. It's very large blocks. There's a little progress bar thing. It's not possible to stop an indexing job, and you don't have any listing of run indexing jobs. I'd say mod inventory storage could be a good solution, good place for inspiration. So what I would like to suggest for all module developers is that each module with its own user and password should try to use those credentials in the startup and report success and or failure. For example, when you log into the database and when you log into the AVS. More syslog-centric log messages. A lot of log messages from modules today are for the developer. Some modules don't say anything at all. Some say very many things, but very few interesting things. And it would be nice to have a simpler way to select the log level for a certain module, preferably changeable in runtime. But in summary, we are very happy with Run FOLIO, even if there are problems. And a good way to run stuff is automate everything you can. All the installation, all the upgrades, and run the upgrade many, many times. I was on another talk where they talked about having 4 test servers wasn't enough. I agree. I think we rebuilt 5 to 10 times the test servers for the library only. And then we had a bunch of other internal servers also. But those are short-lived, so they are not that expensive. It takes a very lot of preparation before going live, each update. So be prepared. But FOLIO has been very stable. We have had one outage, and that was not because of FOLIO. It was our big VMware cluster that went down. So otherwise, it just runs, which is very nice. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, good. Thank you.
Impressed.
One comment.
Yeah.
I really like that you have this slide about indexing and your problems with it.
Yeah.
Felix and I have a session on Thursday about indexing. This session is just yes, what's the name? How did we call it?
Mod search and indexing.
And it's tomorrow, it's Wednesday.
Okay, it's on Wednesday, and as sharing knowledge about, because we do not know a lot, but we, there's not a good documentation, and we also, found, your discoveries were also ours, and, it's nice that you would also say that, you cannot really monitor the process, and that's, difficult.
Is FOLIO running Kibana in the background in Elasticsearch as well, or is it only Elasticsearch?
I don't know.
Because if you install Kibana, you should see the Elasticsearch reindexing information.
We have just used a ready-made image.
Mhm.
Yeah.